In the first few chapters of Genesis, we meet a striking character, Cain. He holds two significant titles in human history: the first child ever born and the first murderer. It's shocking that these two labels belong to the same person. This isn't just a tragic family story. It's a deep exploration of faith, human nature, and free will. Cain was the firstborn of Adam and Eve, and his name roughly means acquired or gotten. Eve expressed joy at his birth, saying, "With the help of the Lord, I have brought forth a man." This shows how much hope and expectation his parents had for him. Soon after, his brother Abel was born. Cain became a farmer, while Abel took care of sheep. It seemed like a simple division of labor, but it foreshadowed two very different life paths. After some time, both brothers presented offerings to God. Cain brought some of the fruits of the soil, while Abel brought fat portions from some of the firstborn of his flock. The Bible tells us that God accepted Abel and his offering but did not accept Cain and his offering. This raises the question, why did God play favorites? At first glance, one might assume that Cain's offering was of lower quality. But if you read Hebrews 11 verse 4, you'll see that the real issue was faith. Abel's sacrifice was made in faith, while Cain's was not. It wasn't about what they offered, but why they offered it. God, who knows people's hearts, saw Cain's wrong attitude. When Cain realized his offering was rejected, he became furious and deeply jealous. His face was downcast, showing his anger and disappointment. But here's something important. God didn't immediately punish him. Instead, he personally spoke to Cain, warning him, "If you do what is right, will you not be accepted? But if you do not do what is right, sin is crouching at your door. It desires to have you, but you must rule over it." Cain had a choice to master sin or let sin master him. Sadly, he ignored God's warning. Later, Cain suggested to Abel, "Let's go out to the field." There, he attacked and killed his brother, making him the first murderer in history. When God asked, "Where is your brother Abel?" Cain coldly responded, "I don't know. Am I my brother's keeper?" His answer revealed not just a lack of remorse, but also complete defiance. God then sentenced Cain to be a wanderer, exiled from the land he knew. But even in judgment there was mercy. Cain feared being killed in revenge, so God marked him with a special sign to prevent others from harming him. This act showed both God's justice and his compassion. Genesis 4 verses 16 to 17 says that after being cast out, Cain lived in the land of Nod, east of Eden, with his wife. This brings up a common question. Where did Cain's wife come from if only Adam, Eve, Cain, and Abel existed? Many assume that after Abel's death, only Cain and his parents remained. However, Genesis 5 verses 3 to 4 states that Adam and Eve had other sons and daughters. Since Adam lived for 930 years, he had many children over centuries. So Cain likely married his sister or niece. Today, such a marriage would be considered incest. But at that time, human genetics were still nearly perfect, and close relative marriage was necessary for population growth. It wasn't seen as immoral or unnatural. In fact, close relative marriages were common early in human history. For example, Abraham, God's faithful servant, married his half-sister. It wasn't until 1513 BCE, when Moses introduced God's law, that incest was explicitly forbidden. Modern Christians avoid close relative marriage, not only because of moral concerns but also due to genetic risk. So why did God allow close relative marriages at first and later prohibit them? The answer is simple. God tailors his laws to different stages of human development. Deuteronomy 32 verse 4 says, "He is the rock, His works are perfect, and all His ways are just. A faithful God who does no wrong, upright and just is He. God created Adam and Eve, bringing the animals to Adam to name them. Yet, Adam had no suitable helper, so God created Eve from Adam's rib. This was the beginning of marriage. Sadly, Adam and Eve misused their free will, disobeying God and damaging their relationship. Satan, disguised as a serpent, deceived Eve into eating from the tree of knowledge. She failed to consult Adam first, and Adam, instead of obeying God, also ate the forbidden fruit. When God asked Adam and Eve to explain what had happened, Adam immediately blamed Eve, saying, "It was the woman you gave me, she gave me the fruit from the tree, and I ate it." Eve, in turn, blamed the serpent, saying she was deceived. But these excuses don't hold up. Both Adam and Eve disobeyed God and were seen as traitors. After Satan deceived Eve in the Garden of Eden, God made the first prophecy in the Bible, saying that the offspring of the woman would eventually destroy Satan, the first rebel against God. Marriage, from its very origin, was established by God. He said, "It is not good for man to be alone. I will make a suitable helper for him." Eve was created from Adam, and the Bible records that Cain likely married his sister or niece, while Abraham married his half-sister. Today, we consider incest as close relatives marrying each other. However, in biblical times, if a man died without an heir, his brother was expected to marry the widow to continue the family line. This wasn't seen as immoral or evil. So why did God allow close relative marriages in early human history? When He created Adam and Eve, they were perfect. His original plan was for all humans to come from them. In those early generations, close relative marriages were necessary. Even though sin existed, early humans were still genetically strong, meaning the risk of birth defects was much lower than today. We can see this reflected in their long lifespans. About 2,500 years after Adam's sin, God officially banned close relative marriages. This law not only protected future generations but also upheld moral standards among God's people. From God's perspective, maintaining moral purity is essential. Isaiah 48 verse 17 says, "I am the Lord your God, who teaches you what is best for you, who directs you in the way you should go." Those who truly know God listen to His guidance because they love Him and want to please Him. Since God is the source of life, we should trust in Him. Another difficult but true story in the Bible is about Lot and his daughters. After surviving the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah, Lot and his 2 daughters lived in a cave. The daughters believed there were no men left to marry, so the older one told the younger, "Our father is old, and there is no man around here to marry us as is the custom everywhere. Let's get him drunk, then sleep with him so we can preserve our family line." The fact that they got their father drunk suggests that Lot would never have agreed to this while sober. At the time, there were no other men from their family to marry them, and they saw this as the only way to continue their lineage. This story isn't included in the Bible to promote immorality, but to explain the origins of the Moabites and Ammonites, 2 nations that later played a major role in Israel's history. Lot was Abraham's nephew, so the Israelites and these 2 nations were distant relatives. Because of this connection, when the Israelites entered the Promised Land, they were instructed not to attack Moab and Ammon. Genesis 19 simply records this historical event without commenting on whether God approved or disapproved. However, later biblical laws make it clear that God condemns drunkenness and incest. In the laws given to Israel, God explicitly forbade sexual relations between close relatives, saying, No one is to approach any close relative to have sexual relations. I am the Lord. Those who broke this law were to be put to death. Even though Lot and his daughters lived before these laws were given, their actions, especially getting Lot drunk, show that they knew it was wrong. So why does 2 Peter 2 verse 8 call Lot a righteous man? It's not because God approved of his drunkenness or what happened with his daughters. The Bible describes Lot as a man who was deeply troubled by the wickedness of Sodom. God, who judges the heart, still considered him righteous despite his mistakes. The relevance of these stories today. Are we like Cain? His story reflects human nature. We feel anger when we're not recognized. We struggle with jealousy. We hear our conscience but sometimes ignore it. We blame others or even God for our mistakes. But we have a choice. God says, "You must master sin." Life isn't about whether you've made mistakes, it's about how you respond to them. Will you let sin control you, or will you overcome it? History is a mirror that reveals the deepest truths about human nature. The story of Cain isn't meant to condemn a long-dead murderer but to warn us. Without a foundation of faith, even the kindest person can go down a dark path. Every day we face choices. We can choose to listen to God's voice and live differently. The Bible isn't about stirring up wrong desires, it's written to teach and guide us.